Thank you, sir. So, why do we need to conduct appropriate literature search? One, for general, we may want to have general, and we may want to have background information about a particular problem that we want to interrogate or a particular research area. Again, we may want to find out what the latest evidence is in a particular field of study. Then we may want to know, we may want to find evidence to, of course, we do this a lot. We want to find evidence to support or refute a particular claim or our ideas. Then it's possible that we may want to review literature to broaden our horizon of knowledge. I mean, just to know more. Then also, which is this, I mean, the last one, which is key for me, is to also find out how a piece of research was done. We must do a good literature search. So, be that as it may, where do we find our where are the sources? I mean, what are the sources of our, I mean, the sources that we should look out for when searching databases? One, we must look for scholastic journals in academics. Journals, I mean, peer-reviewed journals are key when it comes to, I mean, having sound foundation for our literature review. Also, academics, I mean, we rely so much on conference reports and proceedings. I mean, by conference reports and proceedings, of course, people organize conferences around local conference and international conferences, and reports that are generated from such conferences, we also relied on, because it's the gathering of scholars where issues have been discussed, and the report of such discussions or the report of the conferences, we often use it in academics. Yeah. Also, we rely on books. Book is also a good source of academics material. Also, monographs and edited books, which also fall within the categorization of, I mean, books. So also, I mean, we also rely on working papers and gray literature as well. Gray literature such as, it could be reports from world bodies, WHO, reports from technical reports, and other gray literature. Then also, we leverage on dissertation and other reports of any form that, I mean, that have some level of academic input in them. So straight to some of the search engines that we have. Of course, we are all familiar with, I'll start from the general search engine that we use often, I mean, day to day. Of course, Google is general. We all use Google. But one thing with Google is Google operates with this philosophy, which is GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you feed into Google, definitely you must get results. So you're going to get results at the end of the day if you feed anything into Google. But reason why most academics don't rely on Google is because of the fact that, of course, you have all kinds of information that Google will pull the algorithm together, pull together, and give to you. But when you use streamlined academic databases, you realize that you can get streamlined results as regards the problem you are interrogating. For example, a level above Google is, I mean, that we use in academics is Google Scholar. We are all familiar with Google Scholar. For Google Scholar, you realize that it allows you to narrow down your search, and it allows you to, I mean, we'll get to that in the course of this conversation. It allows you to search based on key terms, key concepts that are embedded in your research title and your research questions. So Google Scholar allows, and it allows you to customize your search. For customizing your search, It then means that you can set a range of, I need scholastic journal between 2020 to 2000 and 2026 or 2025, as the case may be. Google Scholar allows you to do that, and which is something that may be difficult for you to do on general Google. Then it also allows you to, do a kind of advanced search. And all of these databases will definitely allow you to do advanced search. Advanced search then simply means you then have to bring together different concepts as well as synonyms of those concepts. You can bring them to pull them together using Boolean operator to then have, search your search at once, and which will give you related materials and what has been done in the study area. So also we have Microsoft Academics, we have Base, we have Core, we have science.gov, we have Semantic Scholar, we have Baidu Scholar, and then we have other online databases such as Sinar, we have Eric, we have Medline, we have Gesture, we have PsycInfo, Social Service Abstract, then PubMed. Well, some of these things are, and some of these databases, some of them are discipline specific. For example, those in medical line, well, will definitely use more. They will definitely use more PubMed. You use Medline, use Gesture. Of course, Gesture is kind of general. So while we have, there's one that is also of importance that we have in OAU, which is Inari. We can search through Inari, and I think library. We have the password to the Inari. Library will supply, if you request for it, our library here will supply the password to the Inari. But one thing with Inari is it cannot be used on private network. You have to use OAU network so that you don't get OAU blocked out of Inari. So that's that. So online literature strategy, we are delving into how do we search, the strategies that we can use to search for our literature on these different databases. So, what online literature search does is the fact that it's the strategy is a systematic, and which is just general, is a systematic plan for having this in mind. You want to identify, why you are searching is that you want to identify, you want to retrieve and review scholarly articles, books, and other academic resources that are available online and through searching the right search engines. Like I said, of course, we can basically type our title or research questions into Google, and it's going to give us all kinds of information. But when you are deliberate and intentional about your search, you realize that you save yourself to that time of having to wriggle around or having to rigmarole around and go search engines like Google. But when you are deliberate and intentional about what you're looking for, then it then means that you have to develop a strategy that will work for you and enable you to save your time. So the best way to go is the route to go is that would then be that the starting point is you must clearly define your research question or topic. From the word go, your topic has to be clear to you. It may not be clear to other readers, but your topic has to be clear to you. And what makes your topic clear to you is the fact that you have key important concepts in your topic, or what we refer to as variables. If those variables are clear to you, the direction of association or the direction of relationship may not be clear to you, maybe because of the fact that you have not thoroughly or properly reviewed literature. Fine, it's still at the beginning, it's still raw, it's still crude at that level. So you must define your research question. And by research question at this point, I am basically saying your key research question, which will actually come up from the research topic you are interrogating. Once you have been able to define your research topic clearly to yourself, and maybe to your supervisor. Once the research topic is clear and the key research question or main research question is also clear, now the next thing is for you to identify keywords or phrase in your title or in your topic or in your research question. You need to identify specific keywords in your title. For example, if my title is reading socio-ecological framework of sexual and reproductive health communication between parents and adolescents. Now, if I am to identify the keywords in the title, definitely socio-ecological framework is one of the keywords, and excuse me, is one of the keywords embedded in my title. I pick socio-ecological framework. Now, again, influencing sexual and reproductive health issues. Sexual and reproductive health is also another keyword. Now, I can decide to go by breaking sexual and reproductive health issues, breaking it down. I can have sexual issues. I can have reproductive health issues. I can have sexual health issues.
Yeah.
That is breaking that key concept, umbrella concept, down into smaller pieces. What that will do, in the course of this, you will understand why we need to break some words down so that it helps us to get the appropriate materials. So again, I also have parent-child communication. Now, I also need to take note of that. Once I have been able to identify each of these keywords, then the next thing would then be for me to decide on the database that I want to search. It could be Google Scholar, it could be Semantic Scholar, it could be Gesture, it could be PubMed. I then need to identify the search engines that I would like to explore so as to get the necessary materials. So once I am there, once I am on any of these search engine, take for instance, if I'm on Google Scholar, then it then means that I need to use the advanced search techniques. By advanced search techniques, but if you log on to Google Scholar, it gives you the opportunity to click on advanced search. So then you can then put all of these words that you have identified earlier, you can then put them together. Now you can put them together, in a crude way. Socio-ecological framework, influencing sexual and reproductive health discussion between parent and adolescent. I can put them together that way. I can search and I'm still going to get something at the end of the day. Well, which will be different from if I have used the advanced search option. For advanced search option, it then means that I have to introduce some other words, some other things, which we call Boolean operator. When we get to one of the slides talks about Boolean operator, which is three magic words, which they are and, not, and or. We'll get to that in the we'll get to that. So if you use the advanced search option, then you can then conduct the search. Then your literature review begins from there, where you then start screening. You start screening your literature from the title. Of course, you want to know whether the title aligns with what the topic you're working with or has some semblance or any relation with the title or topic you are working with. And once you can see some semblance and you can see that it aligns, then you start organizing your document. You start saving, you save those documents by probably download the document, or you may want to go a step higher. By going a step higher, that means that you want to read the abstract to see if it's actually aligned with what you're working on. And you can then start the review process, which we will talk about. We'll also talk about it in the later course of this discussion. Then what is important, something that is also important is you must keep updating your search string. We call it string. You must keep updating your search string. You use search string basically in advanced search. You must keep updating it and ensure that you have the right materials at the end of the day. So you need to, like I said, I need to keep reiterating this, that you must, to search, prior to your search, you must clearly articulate the research question or topic you are investigating. That is very key. It is important. You can't do any meaningful search without clearly articulating your research question, or without your topic being clear to you. You must be able, that is a prerequisite. You can't do a meaningful one. You can't just do, and if you see the diagram displaying on the board, the kind of diagram displaying on the board, you see, if you do a kind of a garbage in, garbage out thing, you're just going to be, you're just going to have all kinds of things that may be difficult for you to manage at the end of the day. So the search engine will help you to focus. Having articulated research question rather, having articulated research question will help you to focus the search engine and determine relevant keywords. So you need to pick out the keywords from your title. Again, I need to state this. For some of us that started publishing, you realize that, and towards the tail end of, the tail end of the page where we have abstracts, we usually put some keywords. They are not just there for fun, but they are there. They are keys. They are keywords that unlock that article. The keywords you have on your paper or on each of these papers, you realize that they are key. They are words that unlock the article. So the reason it is important for us to search appropriately. So what are these key concepts? You need to ask yourself, what are the key concepts or issues in my title? In my title, you need to ask yourself, what are the key concepts or key issues in this title or in your research question? Now, you ask yourself, what are the primary keywords? There are certain keywords that you can't change. For example, in the example I gave, there is socio-ecological framework or socio-ecological model. You can't change socio-ecological model because it's a model, and I think the model is developed by Brenner. So you can't change that. Oh, other issues that I have in the title I gave as an example. You have sexual and reproductive sexual and reproductive health. Now, I can decide to break sexual and reproductive health like I did the other time into sexual health, sexual issues, reproductive health, reproductive issues. Again, we may not be able to replace those key concepts. I'm going to the last point here, which is, now on the title I gave, I also have as keywords in the title, I have parent-child communication. You agree with me that we can have alternative, which is you must look for synonyms.
What you have on your paper
or the key concepts in your title. For concepts that have synonyms, you then need to look for synonyms for them and document the synonyms, because they will also help you in your search. So for the alternative keywords, in the case of parent-child, I can decide to have parent-adolescent. If I'm working on adolescent, I can decide to have parent and teen. I can decide to have father and adolescent. If I need to break it down, I can start to have mother and adolescent. I can start to have mother and child. I can start to have father and child. I can start to have guardian and child, guardians and adolescent, guardian and teen, depending on what I have operationalized as child or children in my study. I don't know if that is clear. I don't know if that is understood.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we must look for synonyms or alternative words for the key concepts that we have in our title. So now, part of the strategy is to use controlled language. Now, for controlled language, one, it varies. For those in medical field, medical line, they will understand this. We use mesh terms, which is medical subject headings. You can use mesh terms for search, which is when you use mesh terms, it helps you to navigate through the search engines easily, and it gives you what you would expect to get at the end of the day. And it also gives mesh tree structures at the end of the day. But for those in medical line, they will all definitely understand this. Now, one thing that is also general is the truncation. For truncation, it's just the abbreviation of a particular concept where at a point where you can have multiple concepts coming from the base words that could lead to several other concepts. What do I mean? For example, I have used computing here. So I have used compute. Now you agree with me that we can have from compute, C-O-M-P-U-T, we can have computer. It's possible that we may have computer. It's possible that we may have computing. We may have computerized. We may have computation. We may have computerization. So as to not waste your time and to get the research right, you need to truncate the word, the parent word, which is compute. You need to truncate it at the first T. And by truncating it, it then means that you introduce asterisk. You introduce asterisk. When you introduce asterisk at that point, and in combination with other things that you're looking for, you realize that the search engine will bring out any article with computer, any article with computing, any article with computerized, any article with computation, and any article with computerization. So you have saved yourself, by introducing truncation, you have saved yourself the effort to start typing each of these concepts one after the other. Another thing that we use, another symbols that we use in place of asterisk is we can use $sign. We can use $sign to truncate, and we can use hash to truncate. Truncation would definitely avail you the opportunity to have multiple articles with extension of where you have truncated, with extension of words at the point of truncation, so that you have saved your time, you have saved yourself the time to start typing each of those words one after the other. Then in the course of screening, you can then choose whichever one you need in the course of screening. Another strategy that we use is the use of wildcard. For the use of wildcard, it works like truncation, but this is in a way could be limited, where you have, at truncation, you truncate it. You truncate the word, and it stops at where you have introduced asterisk, hash, or $sign. But in the case of wildcard, I use the example of woman and women. It's possible that we are looking for woman, and we're in some article, because you can't predict what other authors we use, what other author we use in the course of their writing. So we use question mark to then, as wildcard symbol, to then, so that we can have it performs the same function like truncation, so that we can have opportunity to retrieve articles with other variation. For example, we have woman and we have women. What differentiates women and woman is the alphabet A and alphabet E. So where you have that variation, which is between M and N, you then introduce question mark. For that question mark, you are instructing, more like we are prompting. You are prompting the search engine to look for articles with woman or articles with women. So it's going to bring out articles with either woman or women. You have that in your compilation in what is going to bring out for you. So another search strategy that we use is Boolean operators. For Boolean operator, like I said, they are the three magic words which are and, or, and not. For and, in the example I am using, I may want to say I am looking for socio-ecological framework. That is, articles that have used socio-ecological framework and parent-child communication. I'm using the first letter, which is I'm using the first word, which is and. I need article with socio-ecological framework and parent-child communication and sexual and reproductive health issues. The prompt simply means what you have done is you have simply instructed the search engine to give you any article that combines socio-ecological framework and parent-child communication and sexual and reproductive health issues. That is, you have narrowed down that search to, I don't want any other article that use other words, but I want articles that have used these concepts in combination, irrespective of their arrangement. I am looking for articles that have used this concept, the concept that you have introduced. Then you write your and in capital letter. So what you're saying is, I need articles with this concept in combination, and it's going to bring out the articles out for you. You can try that on your Google Scholar. You realize that you're going to get an amazing result. Now, I'm moving to the second word, which is or. And I'm going to be using or and or together so that we can see the beauty. Now, for or, what you are saying is, oh, I want option. That, oh, it's possible that I may not be able to type this one after the other. I don't want to type it one after the other, but I want articles that have used A or B in their writing. In the course of, dishing out their topic or dishing out their, keywords. I need articles with those. So now, to use it in the example I'm still using is, for example, remember I said socio-ecological framework is key to my study. So, which simply means I may not be able to change that. So, I would then say that I would then instruct the search engine to say, I need articles with socio-ecological framework and parent-child communication. Parent-child. We may not, let's not introduce communication now. I need articles with socio-ecological framework and parent-child. Now I want to use or now, or in capital letter, parent and adolescent. Parent, adolescent with hyphen now. I don't want to use the word and so that we don't get confused. Parent, hyphen, adolescent. The first one, parent, hyphen, child. Or OR. Parent, hyphen, adolescent. Or again, OR, capital letter. Parent, hyphen, teen. Which for teen now, I can then introduce truncation. I can then introduce truncation in front of N, because it's also possible that we have teenagers. We also have some scholars that have used teenagers. So for me to capture those articles, I can then introduce truncation in front of N, which is asterisk or $ or hash in front of N, so that it will bring out articles with teenagers, articles with teen at the same time. I don't know if that is clear.
Yes.
Okay, so again, in continuation of my search string, after teen, I can then also introduce another and sexual and reproductive health issues. That is one concept. Or OR, capital letter. Or sexual issues. Or OR, another capital letter. Sexual health. Or another capital letter OR. Or reproductive issues. Another capital letter OR. Or reproductive health. With that, if you combine all of that, I'm sure you know that that is long, but it's long enough to bring out all articles with those combinations, because you've been able to narrow your search. You've been able to narrow your search with just a string, with just a search string. You'll be able to narrow your search, which is quite different from you typing the title and juggling words in your search again. You have typed the title, you got some material, you type another, juggle of words together in form of that title. You put it on in search engine again. You got some other thing. But what the string will do to you or do for you is the fact that it's going to bring out all related articles that are key to what you have searched. Is going to bring them together under one search, and you can then start screening from there. I don't know if that is clear. Okay, so
it's very clear.
all right, thank you, sir. So the third word is not, and I quickly use that. For example, it's possible that I am not interested in teenagers, or I'm not interested in just the concept child, but I want to focus on concrete concept, which is I am interested in adolescent. And in the definition of adolescent by WHO, it simply say that they are people with between the age of 10 years and 19. And you realize that in between 10 and 19, teenagers is, of course, that definition has actually brought together teenagers. So for me, I may want to say I'm not interested in just child, but I'm interested in teenagers or adolescents. So in the use of not, what I then need to do is I need teen in front of n. You use your asterisk teenage, which has combined teenagers, and AND capital letter, and adolescents. Adolescent clearly stated. Now not, you then introduce not, NOT capital letter, not child. At the behind child, we can also introduce asterisk so that it can capture, it can sieve out even articles with children in the title or in the keywords that they have supplied. So that's how to use not. So as a way of summary, you need to choose the right database or databases and search engines based on your, if you narrow it down to your subject area, the better for you. Some are general that you may want to also search. Is also good. If you can go the general way and as well as discipline specific way, it's also good. Then you can utilize advanced search option, and so that you can introduce the Boolean operator, wildcard, truncation. It's important that we do that so that we can get the right material that we are looking for. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So I will stop here so that Professor Auleye will talk about literature review proper. Thank you so much.
Sir, we don't know if we can
Thank
have
you.
the
Thank you
module
so much,
back
sir.
up.
Before you go away, let's give the next 5 minutes, sir, for you to grant them opportunity to ask 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, it's fine, sir.
The floor is open.
Yes, I said I don't know if the materials can be sent to us. We can actually download the materials on the module site.
Dr.
Okay, I'll try to do that.
All right, thank you, sir.
So
any other question?
Sir,
Any other question?
hello, sir. Please, I would like to ask this question. Sir, is it possible now to use both and or and not
Yes,
together
it's possible to
we
use
are
it in a
searching
in a single search string. It's
in a
possible
single
to
search?
use all of the Boolean operators. It's possible that
All
it's possible to use them.
right.
So it's possible for you to combine the operators rather.
Yes.
You can combine more than one, two, you can combine or and all of that, just like you have said. Okay, if there's no other question, I think that's a very good one from our very own Dr. Aliu. Thank you so much, sir. We quite appreciate your presence and the time you put together for this preparation for this presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome,
And
sir.
God bless.
Thank you,
Amen,
sir.
sir. You too, sir. All right,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Well done.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think I can go to the next presentation now. We are going to talk about the concept of literature review. We're going to see aspects of literature review, talking about the theoretical, conceptual, empirical frameworks, and all of that. And then at the same time, the first thing we should even talk about is why do we have to do literature review? I think, in a way, Dr. Aliu mentioned some of this when he started. Literature review is actually the part of the thesis that we're expected to submit as part of the requirements for the fulfillment of our degree. Even after you have completed your coursework is just part of, just like a certain, like 25% of the requirements for you to bag a PhD. So the thesis is the core of the work of a PhD candidate. So, and if you look at your thesis, this is an aspect of the thesis which is the most important aspect. Most of the time, people don't pay attention to literature review. But then, literature review in itself, it is the backbone of everything you want to do in your thesis. Whether you want to think about the research gap that you're going to put in your chapter 1, your title, and the objectives, research questions, the hypotheses you want to formulate, the secrets are embedded in literature review. All of those ideas, we are not coming from home with those ideas. Even though you may have some idea of what you intend to do, but we need evidences. You need evidences from literature to be able to situate the positions. And that's why all the things you need for everything you expect to be written in chapter 1, you find them in your literature review, which is your chapter 2. I mean, I'm talking because I'm in OAU, and I believe most of the faculties and departments we follow almost the same pattern, because it's usually chapter 1 for introduction, chapter 2 for literature review, chapter 3 for methodology, chapter 4 for results and discussion, chapter 5 for conclusion. Some, maybe in some sociology and all of that, they may have chapter 6 and chapter 6, I guess, and some other places. But then chapter 2 is the same, which is for your literature review. And at the same time, your chapter 3 as well, the methodology that you're going to use in chapter 3, all of the ideas and everything are founded in your literature review. All the constructs and everything, they're also founded. So you can see now, and you will believe it means that literature review is very germane. You cannot do without literature review. Literature review is very, very important. So that's why you don't have to hold it with levity. You have to give it all it takes for you to be able to do it well and do it appropriately. So this is what we want to examine. Now, when we say, okay, let me quickly rush to this place to see why do we conduct a review, a literature review. Number one, it is to establish the context and significance of your research. Because the ideas of your research cannot come from your head. The ideas of your research cannot come from what people are saying. You can have idea from what people are saying, fine, but then you need to be able to have an authority to say that, oh, this is where this idea is coming from. This is where this gap is coming from. Meaning that when you are generating even your research gap in the way you are stating your statement of the problem, you need to situate it with authorities that have existed, that have said it in their works, that, oh, this problem is situated in this particular literature. Because when you want to conduct your PhD research and you are stating your problems, you cannot say that your problems is actually coming from what you read on the pages of the newspaper. No, we don't take that in PhD. For any normal presentation outside, for just Jamboree presentation, you can use all of that. But your statement of the problem must be founded in literature. So it says that it establishes the context and significance of your research, demonstrating its relevance to the broader academic conversation. Because it is when you have this authority that you can say, beat your chest and say, oh, this is where this is coming from, and these are the authorities that have said that there is a challenge in this particular area. Not only one authority, but this also authority as well is also supporting that indeed that problem exists. All of that will be found in your literature. Then the reason why we are conducting literature review, or why literature review is important, is because we want to demonstrate familiarity with current knowledge and ongoing debates within your field to be able to establish credibility. Because if it is important for you to be current. When we are saying current, not just talking about current affairs, not just talking about who is the president of Nigeria, what is Trump doing now? Do you know about ICE going on in America? It's not just talking about that. No, unless if that is relevant to your work, if that is relevant to your field, if that is part of what you are studying. So you must be current about the knowledge, the debate in the domain of your work. In your domain, you have to be current. And you cannot just be current if you are not familiar, or if you have not familiarized yourself with the literature in that domain. So this is the reason why this is very, very important. I mean, PhD, you cannot just sit there and say, oh, PhD, I just want to use ChatGPT to generate everything and put it together. No, like I've always told you. Yes, the use of AI is fine, but at the same time, it has its own limits of use. Even if you have used it to generate some knowledge, to harvest some things for you, or to do a few things for you, that thing must be part of you. Because the AI in itself will not stand to defend your thesis for you. AI in itself will not stand before your supervisor to answer questions for you. So whatever you have written in your thesis, it must be part of you. And that is why at the end of the day, by the time you finish your program, you will now see that you are now fully and thoroughly trained. And PhD, you do more, you have to work 95% of the time of your PhD by yourself. Do you know what I mean? Your lecturers, your supervisors are only there to guide. Once they guide, the rest is on you. So it is important that you demonstrate familiarity with the current knowledge, and it's very, very important. And then most of the time they say that Africans, we usually find things, we find it difficult to read text. And you agree with me that even from my experience with us on our Telegram platform, you can see how so many times I've posted one information 1,001 times, and you see people still asking questions. People that have not read previous messages. They will just jump in and be asking questions again. In fact, on YouTube, the lecture has started. Dr. Ali has started the lecture for more than 10-15 minutes. Somebody was still asking, have we started the lecture? When is the lecture starting? And I was like, the colleagues were now answering the fellow. Lecture has started. Or what are we talking about? So what we're saying in essence is, as a PhD candidate, as a PhD student, you must be determined to read. And let me tell you, for a PhD, I'm not trying to scare you. Don't worry. In fact, it will be better for you now during your own time than when we did ours. Why? Because you have tools to work with. In 2015, when I completed my PhD, there were no AI tools to assist us to read literature, to assist us to even summarize or to do anything at all. It was not there. But then we were still able to do it. So what I'm saying is, you are able and you can get it done. But then the readiness must be there. The determination must be there that you want this to be part of you. Then at the same time, you must be able to identify gaps in existing research and justify your specific research focus. to show where your work contributes uniquely. So we're going to be seeing all of this as we go on, because this is what the literature review would do for you, to assist you to see where the problems are, to assist you to see the gap that exists in literature within your domain, and then to also to be able to prevent unintentional duplication of efforts. Because it's possible that what you are thinking about, you want to work on, somebody may have done it in another clime, and you may not know if you have not consulted literature as expected in that domain. Because it's possible for you to say, oh, wait, at some point I want to go and present a conference in an international, a paper in an international conference. And you just get there and you find out that the authority you are quoting is also seated. And he has worked in that particular area and you are repeating the same thing. That's like reinventing the wheel. So to avoid that, we need to do thorough search of literature. Now, let's now see how to go about that. What is literature review in itself? It is a critical synthesis. And what do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? A literature review is not just a summary. It's a critical and systematic synthesis of existing research on a specific topic. It involves evaluating, comparing, and contrasting various studies. Can you see a change of my slide there from your end? Let me be sure. Can you see what?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, it's very
that's
visible, sir.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So it is for you to be able to do critical synthesis of literature. We're going to see what syntheses are when we get to the next class. Still the same today. We're going to see what they are. For you to be able to bring knowledge here from one paper to the other and be able to put them together and make some sense out of that. That's what we call synthesis. Because your contribution also, when it has to do with literature review, it's part of some of the things you thought about by yourself, rather than just summarizing what you find in literature. Beyond summarizing what you find in literature, you must be able to also bring your own thoughts, saying that, oh, this author has said this about a particular concept. Another author has also said this, another thing, something related to it about that concept. The third author has also said this, which is also similar to what they are saying. There's a fourth author who is contrary, who is having a contrary opinion to what they had said about this particular concept. You bring everything together and you now put your thought on that as well. That's the form of synthesis. So another one is to identify patterns and gaps. This process goes beyond simply reporting findings, like I said. It identifies overarching patterns that exist in literature. Imagine themes like this. Themes are more or less like clusters. Maybe you are talking about the factors affecting children, maybe underage children, when they get to the university, something like that. And one of the things that may be responsible may be poverty level, maybe in terms of they do not have enough finances. And that may be the poverty level, or maybe what do we call it now? Somebody to borrow me what we can use for that. Economic. Yeah, it could be economic influence, something like that. It could be economic. So that's like a pattern. That's like a theme. It could be another thing. It could be in terms of maybe cognitive development. That may be another theme or another cluster that you're thinking about. So all of these things, you can find them in literature. Literature will assist you to be able to see some of these overarching patterns in your discipline, in your area of study. Then you can also see crucial gaps in current knowledge. Because what you really want to work on is not what people had worked on in the past, but you are really looking for their limitations. You are looking for what has not been done. That is why your research, they request that your research must be unique. And then to make your research unique, it means you are not going to reinvent the wheel. It means you are not going to repeat the research that had been conducted somewhere before. Even if you want to repeat that same procedure, that same methodology, then it must not be the same data. So, but then how do you go about getting all of these ideas? You find them in literature. As I speak now, I can generate 1001 research ideas for you. Don't think it's a magic. Don't think I have done the incision to know how to generate knowledge. No. But when you read literature in your area of study, it's very, very important. There is no other way. There's no escape to it. If you are not ready to read literature. What I normally do, let me give you my secrets. I normally make any 1, 2, or 3 documents that is close to the title I'm working on. I look for them on the internet, I get them printed, and I make them my working Bible. Wherever you see me, you will find that material. I go with those 3, at least 3. And what do I do with that? Once I get to any desk I want to read, I'll put it before me, because people are talking about using computer all the time. You don't use computer all the time. There are some annotations you cannot do so easily with your computer. But it's better for you to have the hard copy, even though we are saying that we should go paperless. Yes, paperless is fine, because all of that literature you are going to work on may be paperless, may be soft copy. But you must have some 2 or 3 of those articles that will be like your working Bible. And what do? You carry them all the time wherever you go. And you ensure that you annotate as you are reading. You annotate, you underline, you put your thoughts. As you are reading line by line, 1 line, 2 lines, you will see something will come to your mind. Oh, okay, this idea regarding what this person is saying, you will just put it there. That's why you must go with your pen and paper all the time and ensure that you put it there. So by the time you want to sit down and settle down to work on to begin to write up, those are the papers you will pick by yourself and begin to key in little by little. That is the way to generate your ideas. Not until when they are asking you, when the PG is saying that, we are going to terminate your studentship. That is when you now begin to, let me begin to use, how do I generate it? How do I use ChatGPT? How do I use answer this? No, that is not the way to do it. That's why you are given 3 years minimum. And is it minimum now? I think maybe 3, 4 years maximum. So that's why you have that space of time, at least 2 good years for your thesis. And it is expected of you that if you write half a page in a day, within those 2 years, you will have written the required number of words. And I think the required number of words for PhD is about 50,000 words. So if you make it an habit and you write 50,000, have a page a day, over time, it will have amounted to that. It is not just 1 day, 2 days, or 1 week, or 2 weeks. It has to be systematic, little by little, and that is that. So then another reason why we do literature review is for foundational framework. It serves as a foundation step for framing compelling research questions and developing appropriate methodologies. There may be some research questions that you have stumbled at or that you are even raising by yourself. It is the literature that will assist you to demystify those research questions, to answer those research questions, and to also give you ideas about the methodologies that you can adopt for that particular work and much more. Now we move on to the 3 layers of knowledge in literature. 3 layers of knowledge in literature review. Now, number 1 is informal knowledge. Yes, we have the secondary reviews and we have the primary studies. What do we refer to as informal knowledge? Informal knowledge is shared opinions, common opinions within a field, often influencing initial perspective, but requiring validation. It's like general knowledge, what people just know, what people are saying. It's like in a particular culture, people are saying that there's a particular culture in this country, I'm not going to mention where. They say that if you visit them and if you are their friend, indeed, they are bosom friend, and they expect you that once you visit them, you go in with their wife. Are you not surprised? This is what they say in a particular culture in this country, in Nigeria. That is what people say, but we are not sure. So for you as a researcher, if you want to find out, then you have to take yourself, maybe to go and bury yourself like this qualitative research, because that's the second one, the second layer of knowledge in literature. We can have meta-analysis, systematic review that interpret and consolidate findings from multiple primary studies, offering broader perspectives. What are we saying? This is more or less like desk research. You may not leave your office to carry out this research. And this is like systematic literature review is a part. Meta-analysis is also a part. Synthesis is another part. Now, the meta-analysis, it's like harvesting empirical data from literature. A number of empirical data from literature regarding a particular question you want to answer in your work. So let's say you have put forward a particular research question that you want to investigate. So what is important is for you to begin to say, okay, you devise inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria for the search of papers that have been written in that line. Dr. Ali has taught us how to search for literature. So now using those techniques that he has taught us in literature search to now search for relevant materials in that domain you want to investigate. And then by the time you have harvested the relevant papers following the inclusion and exclusion criteria. When we say inclusion criteria, what do we mean? It means some of the things you want to include. If that paper has, what do you call it? If that paper reports empirical evidences, then you have to harvest it. That's one of the quality. That's one of the criteria. Then two, if that paper was published between, say, 2015 and 2025, that is another restriction, or that's another criteria for your search. And or maybe you just want to say, okay, those papers must come from Nigeria or Africa alone. So if you have any similar article that were downloaded that were published beyond Nigeria, meaning that does not cover Nigeria or Africa, any part of Africa, if there is any paper that reports Croatia, that reports anything about United States, then you have to exclude that. You have to remove that. Only concentrate on what you are defined that you want to search for. So it's meta-analysis as well as systematic review. They are always equipped with inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria, and a number of that. Now, the difference between meta-analysis and systematic review is systematic review may not be bothered about empirical evidences. It could be articles that talk about theories alone, articles that talk about maybe concepts, or so many things, not necessarily empirical evidences. And then we also have procedures and standards for systematic review, which, if time permits us, we are going to also see that in one of the PowerPoints, and I think you have that with you, one of the presentations you have that with you, where I've talked about how systematic review is carried out. Now, the last one here, which is also the third layer of literature review, is primary studies. Yes, primary studies, original empirical research, raw data, and first-hand accounts that form the bedrock of scientific inquiry. You know, we're talking about the three layers of knowledge now in literature review. So the primary studies could be studies that have gone to the field, studies that have covered southwestern part of Nigeria, that have gone to the field and then have direct contact with their respondents. You know, it could also be experimental studies, maybe experimental studies from the laboratory. They have used rats. They subjected 30 rats or maybe 100 rats to a test to see the efficacy of a particular drug on rats, maybe for diabetic, high blood pressure drugs or something like that, or for diabetic whatever. They will infuse or inject that into those rats. So if the literature is reporting practical field experiments, then that is referred to as the primary studies. But I was surprised when I got to examine a candidate, a PhD candidate in the law department. I'd already marked my pen on in the methodology that no, this methodology is not appropriate. But I was educated by the senior professors there that their own primary literature is not specifically going to the field. They said even reports in the law courts, it's part of their primary study, and I gave up. So what I'm saying in essence, it depends on the area that we are coming from. I don't know if do we have anybody in law here? primary data in law is different from what we refer to as primary data in all other places. So you must take cognizance of that. But what is important is, at the same time, is primary data is also important. It's also part of what people do. So when you look at for studies that have covered primary studies, it's also important as you do your literature search, literature synthesis. Okay, the next one. So we're going to be talking about theoretical concepts. There are about 3 major aspects of literature review. The PG school will expect you to have your theoretical framework, a particular section for your theoretical reporting in your literature review, then conceptual review as well, and your empirical review. So these are some of the things that will guide. Those are the 3 main components of literature review. Now, when we're talking about theoretical review, what do we mean? These are theories that have established that your concept, that have established the concepts and a number of constructs in your work. It will clarify how core concepts are conceptually understood and translated into measurable or analyzable variables. Then it also explains relationship between variables. No, before I go to that, I mean, this particular bullet is talking about the conceptual aspect. I'm going to go to that. But the third bullet here, which is anchors your research in established theories. There is no theory, there is nothing you want to work on, there is nothing you want to report that does not have an associated theory. Mention it from anywhere. There must be an associated theory towards that. So it is important for you to sit back and look at your research questions, look at your objectives. What do you intend to achieve? And then there is a principle or a procedure that can assist you. You have to ensure that for each of your objectives, there must be a corresponding theory. Because you are not expected for a PhD work to only use one theoretical footing for your work. That is too shallow. That is too few. So you must ensure that at least one theory will go with your research question or your research objective. So, and it's very easy today. The AI has made things so easy. All you just need to do is just get that your title, get that your research objective, and ask AI, what are the likely theories in line with this my objective? AI will display some of those things for you. And then from there, you can then begin to search literature towards that aspect and read the concept, that particular concept, and then look for evidences along that path as well. That is all you need to do. That is all you need to do. Like, take for example now, anybody working on maybe adoption of technology. Now, ordinarily one would see here straight away that technology acceptance model will be very, very relevant for that particular thing. So I was talking about the theories, which is important. Then the next one, it's about the conceptual framework. And here, this slide is actually comparing the 3 of them, still presenting to us that theoretical framework, it's established theories that provides ready-made explanation for phenomena, which is usually deductive, testing predefined hypotheses, hypotheses that have been formulated and confirmed, theories that have been confirmed. Hypotheses that have been confirmed are what we refer to as theories. So that settles that. Then the conceptual framework is the brain of all your constructs. Yes. The conceptual framework is important for all PhD works. It's a flexible, often visual or narrative model. In the social sciences, they may not make it visual. In the arts, they may not make it visual. It could be descriptive. But in all other parts, it is usually visual, which represents visually. I'm going to show you the one that I used during my own PhD. I'm going to show you the framework that I used. And it will house all your constructs, all the constructs you want to use in your work. In fact, that one alone is enough to explain your 200, 250, 300 pages of thesis. Take, for example, now that you only have 5 minutes to present your thesis to the president. You cannot be talking about everything from page 1 to the back cover. All you need to do is to present that summary to him using that conceptual framework. It is the conceptual framework that you speak to. So it is important for you to look at what is existing in literature, conceptual framework that is existing in literature that may be relevant to what you want to work on. And you are not expected to just carry it directly, copy and paste, and use it directly. No, you can adapt. You are expected to adapt. You can also come up with your own conceptual framework from your head and put everything together. But conceptual framework, you cannot do it in one day. It is not what you achieve in one day. You have to be doing it over time until you perfect what you really want to do. And where will that idea come from? The idea will come from literature as well. So like I said, it is the conceptual framework we house all the constructs, all the variables and their relationships. How does one link with the other? And I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like, the conceptual framework. And I think I have let me look for. So this is what I use for my work. And if you look at this, all of these are the summaries of all the variables and all the variables that I used for the work. And what are we talking about? If you look at this side on the left pane here, is showing us the internal capabilities. The left pane here is reporting the variables relating to internal capabilities. I'm actually going to look at what are the constructs that affect the performance of firms in the industry. This is the kind of a thing. That's the work I was working on. We wanted to look at the construct, the variables that are affecting, that can impact the performance of firms in nicety clusters. And in literature, I found that there are some internal capabilities that can assist them. There are some externalities as well that can impact that, and a few other things. So if you look at the left here, and then innovation capability, what is even innovation capability in itself? What are the constructs of innovation capability? Number one, I can see here investment capability according to LAD 1992. How did I know? I found that in literature. It also mentioned that linkage is also key. Linkages capability, marketing capability, organizational capabilities are also key. So all of these capabilities were found and could be traced to LAD 1992, LALL 1992. I found that in literature. And then regarding internal capabilities, I also noticed that there are some socioeconomic factors that are relevant to the businesses. One of them is age of the business, which is a construct. How old, how long have they have they been in business? Then the size of the business. How large is the business? Is it small scale? Is it large scale? Is it medium scale? And how do I know the configuration of the scales, of the sizes of the businesses? I also found that in literature. In fact, one of the authorities I use to define small scale, micro scale, medium scale, and large scale was the reports of Smidan. So if I have not, Smidan is an agency in Nigeria. Is their definition of these categories that I use to say, this social number 0 to 5 is micro business, from 10 to 15, from whatever, is a small business, and all of that. So if I do not get the literature, I will not know how to define those categories. Then at the same time, we also have the enterprise human resources. What are those things that are tending towards that? What are the factors? What are the constructs? And I found all of this. And if you look at it as well, I also found some externalities on this side. And then their relationships. You can see that all the internal capabilities can contribute to innovation capability. There's another arrow here coming from externalities, the external forces that can impact the performance. That's what it's talking about. Linkages with research institutions and knowledge institutions. Another one is intensity of networking. How do they network with other people outside their business? Then another one is proximity advantage. What are those things? Is there nearness to market? Is there measure of nearness to customers, suppliers, and all of that? Then support structures. Is there any government support structure? Is there infrastructural support that can assist the business? So those are the things that are referred to as the externalities. We have the internal capabilities as well. All of that constitutes into what we know as the innovation capability. And then all of that can also impact the firm performance in the industry. And even at that, we also have what we call the absorptive capacity, which was also derived. What is absorptive capacity? Absorptive capacity has to do with the internal resources to be able to absorb the external knowledge you want to bring into your organization. Do they have staff capable of understanding the scientific, the technological tools that will be adopted? So those are some of the things. And how do I know that? I also found absorptive capacity in literature, by Levinthal. I also found a good number of other things as well. There's also what we call agglomeration. Agglomeration is talking about the proximity to markets, proximity to many things and all of that. Then policy instruments as well. That's the support structure. There's another linkage is also regarding collaboration and all of that. So it is you link everything together in a framework like this, bringing all your concepts together. You can see that all my variables, if you look at these variables, they are running to like about 25 variables that I put to use in my work, and this is summarizing it. Everything is pointing to all my dependent variables are all here. This is my dependent variable here, the farm performance. And what did I use as my farm performance? It will have been defined also. And in literature, I found out that I could use performance of farms could be in terms of monetary and non-monetary. Monetary could be in terms of turnover of profits, profit turnover. It can also be profitability. There are some other things as well. All of those details were demystified, explained better in the methodology section. But then I have gotten the glimpse of what I needed to do from the literature. So all the independent variables are also there, which I also saw in literature. Not just seeing them in literature, these are the things that you must talk about in your literature. Because it's always a connection. There must be a connection between your chapter 1 and your chapter 2. And there must be connection as well between all the elements in your chapter 2 to your chapter 3. Your theory, you must also refer to your theory that you have written in chapter 2 in your methodology. You must also refer to the constructs you have described and that you have described, that you have explained, that you have seen in chapter 2 must be mentioned in chapter 3. So you can see the flow. At the same time, when you get to your chapter 4 where you are reporting, you are also still referring to the theories. You cannot just report and disconnect the theories. Your report must be in line with the theories. Must also be in line with the methodologies you have also seen, the construct as well. So those are some of the links. So that's why I just thought to bring you here to show you some of the nitty-gritty of the conceptual framework. It is very germane for a PhD work. Talking about the empirical research in literature reviews. Empirical research is also very, very important. Empirical research is we have talked about the theory, we have talked about the concept, now the empirical. Empirical are the evidences, real evidences in terms of figures, in terms of numbers. How many people have used mobile phone for research? Somebody has gone to the field. He has conducted primary experiments. He has also conducted maybe desk research, like meta-analysis, like we have described, or systematic literature review. And then you want to bring in all those evidences. So it is usually data-driven. It's a critical discussion of existing studies that present data and evidences. That's your empirical. That is what is expected to be discussed under your empirical literature. They are factual evidences. This section focuses on what has actually been observed and measured. What has been observed and measured. What has been conducted. You can see this guy now is an expert. Is a scientist. And he's recording all his findings. He's recording all his findings and he's moving on. So empirical evidences, it's all about, or empirical literature review is all about empirical evidences that are found in literature related to your work. And then, as you find empirical evidence, there are many parts to that. There is this methodology part of that evidence as well. As we are going through the empirical literature, you must also look at the way they are conducted, their methodology, their research. Maybe you also want to borrow an idea from that methodology. You want to look at, okay, how many pieces of how many what do we call it? Let's talk about experimental research, for example. Maybe they want to do titration. What is the level of acid that they mix, the volume of acid rather, that they mix with a particular base? And what is the name of that base? Is this sodium hydroxide or sodium chloride? Those are the methodologies that they used. So you want to look at that, you want to borrow knowledge from there as well to be able to adapt to your work. So those are some of the things. You want to see the measures, you want to see the quantities, you want to see what they are done and all of that. And then from there as well, it can also provide opportunity for you to see available gaps in literature. To help you identify critical research gaps, it could be methodological gap, it could be theoretical gap, it could be the process gap as well in any way. And let me tell you where you can usually gain ideas for research. I usually look at the limitations. When you pick up any article, towards almost the end of that article, you will see a part they call it limitation of the research. And that is where you can easily see some of the things that they have not conducted. They may have conducted a certain part of that, but there may be another part that they had not conducted research on. So they will state that in that article. But meanwhile, if you are reading predatory articles, you may not see that there. But just ensure that any article you want to pull down, you want to use for your work, they are authoritative articles in reputable outlets. Don't just use articles that are predatory that will be misleading you. So that's that. And then here is the comparison table. I'm not going to go all over this because we already have that to save our time. This is a comparison table that shows the comparison between the conceptual framework, theoretical framework, and empirical framework. You have that with you. And then we also have types of literature. How do you conduct your review? What are the tones? What style? How do you put it together? That's what we call argumentative. You can argue for and against. Oh, this particular person has discussed this concept, and this is what he has said. This one has also done this is what he has said, and then you can then bring the arguments together with your own knowledge. It supports or refutes a specific viewpoint or hypothesis. You may not necessarily need to support them. You may not necessarily need to against them if you don't want to, but it depends on what you are thinking. It depends on, that is your own contribution. That is where your because at the end of the day, if you do all of this well, you can also publish your literature review. It is allowed. But if you have not done it well, by the time you send it to reviewers and they can't see any meaningful thing there, they throw it back at you. So you may make it argumentative. There are some that can make it integrative. And what do we mean by that? Synthesizes diverse studies to generate new frameworks or perspective. You can also we bring these ideas together, if you match this and this together, then we can come into another one. We can also find another opportunity to get things done in a better way, bringing out another framework. It can also be historical. This is what they do mostly in political science, and I think some other parts of arts and all of that. They trace the evolution of concepts, theories, methodologies over time, providing context and progression. They will just be discussing like summary. Discussing this person said this, and after that, in 1945, Kukumaiko talked about this one, Plato talked about this one, and after Plato, the next thing is Aristotle, 1455 to 1855. Those are the descriptions, historical, talking about the history that surrounds that particular concept. Then bringing out key persons, key experts, key know-how within that particular environment. Then the other one is methodological. It focuses on research methods used in studies, analyzing their effectiveness and appropriateness for different contexts. So when you pick a research article, you can straight away go to the methodology part. That's what I do. I'm telling you some of my secrets. You go to the methodology part and say, okay, let me see this article. I don't want to read the whole article. but I want to know why they use this methodology, how they carry out this particular research. The how is the methodology. And you read it, okay, after you study the description, from there, ideas will flow to you regarding what you also have to do. You know, you can do review of all of that. And I'm going to show you a matrix of how to do sentences. I may not be able to go through the main sentences, whatever, but I'm going to PowerPoint. But I'm going to show you that table, that matrix of how to synthesize your literature review. Then the other one is systematic. I think it employs a rigorous predefined method to identify, select, and critically appraise research to answer specific questions, minimizing bias. I have explained this systematic review the other time, and I think we also have a PowerPoint regarding that. And I think somebody is saying not showing here, not showing where. I'm sure people in YouTube, I can still see it, I can monitor it, and people on Zoom can also still see that. Okay, so that's fine. Systematic review, we have that there. And then theoretical, and a good number of other things. So as I'm trying to round up now, we have some common pitfalls, but time will not permit me to talk about that. I will quickly jump to presenting to you that particular matrix I talked about, which is about the sentences. When you want to synthesize, what are the key things that you do? Yes, this is what you do in sentences. How to synthesize your literature. This is how to synthesize. This particular table is expected of you to be included in your literature. This is like a summary of some of the concepts. Like if you look at this one now, you can have the author and year. You can have the digital, you can have maybe where I was trying to look at the adoption of digital tools and business performance. So in this particular work now, I want to go through all the literature I want to harvest and see what are those digital tools that they have deployed. So I have that here. Then what is the context? I need to know what are how many people did they sample? Yes, I want to see all of that, and in which country and all of that. Then what are the theories that were used? You can put that there. Then the method, what is the methodology that they adopt? Then what are the performance measures? What are the performance measures that they used? And then what are the key findings of that particular research? And then what is the research gap, the possible research gap. So if you put this in your as part of your literature review, it's like it's will concise. And even when you are making your PowerPoint presentation for your seminar, people can see it at a go. Let me also tell you, in faculty of tech, especially in computing, you cannot escape if you don't have this table. You can't. They are here. If any one of them is there, they can. If you don't have this table in your literature, there is no way your presentation will scale through, especially your first presentation. So this one has to be there. And what does that say? If you look at this one here, you can see now that Zhu and Kramer, 2005. That is the literature I have sampled, I have reviewed, and I have found in that particular article that the digital tools used is e-business systems, deployed. And then the concept, it has also sampled about 624 retail firms among 10 countries. Then it has used TOE framework. I don't know what that is. I can't remember now. Then the method is SEM that they have applied in this particular work. SEM is a short for structural equation modeling. They have adopted structural equation modeling in that particular research work, in that particular research paper. And they have used operational and competitive value as their performance measure in that work. Then key findings, e-business use improves firm value. That's the key finding in this particular. It might be more than one. It can be two, you put that there. Then the research gap, it shows that there is limited SME focus on a particular. This is just an example on a particular than things like that. You go to the next one as well. Bring in the data tool used there, bring in the number of people sampled, then write the theory, write the method as well, and all of that. So when you have all of this summary in your matrix table, it will permit you and give you the opportunity for anybody to see what you have done in your literature at a glance. So I'm going to stop here and then give us the opportunity to ask one or two questions before we close. I'm conscious of time. I'm looking at the time. But the other PowerPoint I've provided, they are self-explanatory, and I think I've also mentioned what synthesis is. One of them is talking about synthesis. The other one is talking about systematic literature review, which is quite easy and straightforward to see. So I am going to allow Aji Nawo to ask his question. Unmute yourself now. Oh yeah, you can
Thank
speak.
you, Prof. Yes, thank you, Prof.
You're welcome.
When you were teaching us about the 3 layers of knowledge in literature reviews, you
Yes.
mentioned something about secondary reviews, where we actually talked about the meta analysis. Now, my question is this: can meta analysis be justified?
Meta, not
Yes,
meta.
yes,
Meta,
yes, meta,
META.
yes, meta, yes, meta analysis. Can meta analysis be justified by the use of the bibliography, which you are just giving to us, to actually, because you said it has to do with inclusion of materials and exclusion of material. So can we?
Bibliography is another, I get your point. Bibliography is another methodology. That's not meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is also standing on its own. Bibliography is another methodology which is also possible for you to carry out.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Yes, that is my question.
Yes.
Another questions. At the beginning of your lecture, you also made a statement that statement of problem can be established in the literature
Yes.
review. That was what you said. Now, I now
Yes.
want to say that in a situation of in a situation whereby there is a particular problem, I am talking about situational source now. Maybe something just happened in my environment. Does that mean that I cannot, establish a problem or fine-tune a kind of a rationale?
No.
Before
You
I
can only
can.
initiate. I get your point. You can initiate a problem from there. You can get
Okay.
an idea for a problem from your environment, but you have to establish it in literature.
In literature. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Do you get that? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so you can unmute yourself. You can mute yourself now. If somebody else has any other question, you can raise or put it in the chat box. But let me answer to this question first. I think somebody is saying that Abiodun Ogunjimi is asking a question about on research gap. I need some explanation on it, sir, because my supervisor said I should work on research gap. That is the beginning of what I am going to do. Is a research gap a statement of problem? More explanation. Okay. It's very simple. Statement of problem and research gap, they are two different things, but they are related. Research gap is a general, broad idea of what the gap you want to fill in literature. It's a broad idea of the gap of what you want to fill in literature. But research problem will now emanate from there, because you now have to be putting your thoughts together, as well as looking for authorities where you can say that this is where this problem I'm thinking, this a particular area I'm thinking about, I can establish it in a particular literature. Because if you cannot establish it in literature, you cannot bring it in your thesis and say this is your statement of the problem. No. Your statement of the problem must be established in literature. Why the general idea can come from your head and then you begin your search for that problem in literature. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Omawumi, okay. Omawumi, you can unmute now.
All right, good afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I have a question.
Go on.
I want to ask, what is the difference between hypothesis
We
and
can't hear you.
theory?
You are moving around. Stay in one place and ask the question.
No, I'm not moving around, sir. Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh yeah, it's better now.
Yes, sir. I want to ask, sir, what is the difference between hypothesis and research question?
Oh, okay. Okay. Hypothesis. Research questions are questions that you want to answer with your thesis. There are questions that they are key overarching research questions you want your thesis to answer. Now, breaking it down now regarding how do I want to go step by step to answering these questions is by breaking it down into hypothesis. So that hypothesis is just like something you are guessing, you are not sure yet. You just want to put that fit down first and then say, oh, I want to investigate this. When you have now gone to the field and you have come back and you have analyzed your work, you will now come back now to revisit your hypothesis to check whether your hypothesis is now you want to accept it or you want to reject it. Because it is the field data that you have computed that will determine and will confirm or nullify the hypothesis you have set. The hypothesis is coming is like is like a statement that is not founded yet. Yes.
Not
But you
about
just put it there because you have to say something first. After saying that thing first, you will now test it. After you have tested, some of the time in social sciences, we accept 5% error level or 95% confidence interval. And that is what we look out for when we test variables, when we test constructs that, okay, let's say, for example, that female students use internet more than their male counterparts in higher institutions to conduct their research. That is an hypothesis. We are not sure yet. So by the time you now come back, you have gone to the field and you now come back, you now find out that indeed female students are using it more. And you have subjected your work to analysis, and the analytical tool is telling us that that particular variable is significant. If it's less than 0.05, then it means you are going to accept that hypothesis. Because hypothesis, you can also set your alternative hypothesis, your null hypothesis. And most of the time, you can accept your alternative hypothesis and reject the other one. And it can be the other way around, depending on what you have come out with in your results. I think that answers your question. Ajinawo, are you still raising? Is that okay? The person that asked the question, are you okay with that? Are you there? Okay, Ibrahim, do you want to ask any question? I can see Ibrahim, WA. Ajinawo, is it the same one or you are still raising your hand? Is it the same hand or you are still raising it? Let me also check whether we have questions. Let me attend to questions on YouTube. Okay, somebody was trying to ask. So about sources of literature. He says sometimes the exact information we need is found in sources like Britannica or some companies' websites or even Wiki. Are these sources acceptable? Those sources are not acceptable as far as I know. Those sources are not enough, even though you may include them, but they are not enough to sit on that, to say that this is the authority where you have gotten evidences for the research problem you want to work on. So that answers that. But then those sources are also still useful. Britannica are useful. Company websites are also useful. Even company reports, you can also use that as well. You know, you can use them in your work. They're useful because these are some of the things you also talk about when you are writing your thesis. You can also gather information from reports and websites. Yes, but then it's good. You can use them. You can use them as well, but they are not good enough to situate your research based on that alone. Okay, I think that answers that. So somebody was saying here as well, still on YouTube question. I'm coming back to Zoom. Somebody said that I mentioned earlier that there is need for theory for each objective. Yes, it's not saying must I have 4 or 5 different theories for my four objectives. It depends. If you have related objective, then one theory can answer for the two. If the objectives are not related, then separate theory can answer for each of them. You can also even use 2 theories for one objective. There is no hard and fast rule saying that it has to be 1-to-1. No. You can use 2 theories to even speak to or answer one research question. So it depends on you, it depends on what is available. The more the merrier. So, but then we're not saying that go and bring 20 theories in a PhD. Well, that's not what we're saying. If you have like 4 or 5, 6, it's good for you, and then make it sizable and be able to ensure that you are not just mentioning them. You must ensure them you use them across the platforms of your thesis in terms of must reflect in your methodology, must reflect in your results, and all of that. Let me see. Let me check other questions. Okay. Somebody said, is there a policy or rule that each research objective must be driven with a theory? And I think, not necessarily, but at least you must have one for each objective. You must have one for each objective. Okay, that's fine. So let me also attend to YouTube, and then so that we can close in the next 5 minutes. Somebody is asking, what should a researcher do if there is no existing theoretical framework in his area of research? It's not possible. There is nothing that is new under the surface of the earth. There is nothing that is new. So you must definitely have one that will map your work. Somebody is saying, what is the difference between conceptual framework and clarification of concepts? What's the meaning of this? I don't understand your question. If you are there, user, make sure when you are coming on Zoom, and always ensure to put your name. Who is this user? He wants to know what's the difference between conceptual framework and clarification of concepts. I don't understand that. So if you want to speak, you can just raise up your hand and yeah, somebody wants to know, or then in Kabukola Comforts, is there stipulated number of articles for literature review? No. But I think for a PhD, at least, if it were to be masters, 150 is okay. If it's PhD, you should not have less than 200. 200 articles. That is why you are given a space of 2 years after your coursework to focus on your research. You must have consulted nothing less than 200 articles within that space of time. So somebody said, thank you for the lecture. That's Techno KM4. You should be putting your names now. Who wants to ask, does one needs to read what? I'm coming. Does one needs to read the whole of a published work to be able to find the research gap? In fact, you won't just be only one. You will not just be only one. And I've told you the secret to finding research gap. If what you want to find first is about research gap, and you have determined within yourself that the main research gap you want to fill is about theory, then you look at the aspect where the person has described the theory in that article. If your contribution, the contribution you want to bring on the table is about methodological contribution, then if I were you, I will read the methodology part of that relevant article. But if you are not lazy, why don't you read through everything? Because you can also, in your PhD, there is nothing stopping you from contributing to literature in area of theory, in area of methodology as well, and some other areas like that. So if you are not lazy, the key articles that you have downloaded that you want to work with, read them to generate that idea. Once you have that idea, the rest will be easy for you. Okay, so let me see. Somebody say, what's the difference between, okay, I think I've read that. Okay. Somebody's asking difference between theoretical, empirical, and conceptual framework must all be included in chapter 2. Yes, now I've explained this. This is what we discussed extensively today. I've told you about the differences between them, and there's even a table that I've tabulated in this PowerPoint, if you are in your Moodle or you have access to that, that will also, you can see the, I've juxtaposed them to one another using a certain criteria, for that. So that is that. And then he wants to know if somebody said, Amechi Chukwuyere. Okay, you prefer to test now, to send text. He's saying, my field is animal nutrition. Is there any need for theoretical framework in a literature review? Yes, because it's scientific now. What you are doing there is you are in science. It's very, very important. Whether you are in science or even non-science based, you have to do theoretical framework. It's very, very important as well. You have to do it. It's very important. That's part of the PhD work. That's part of the PhD work. Okay. Any last questions so that we can go? Our time is fast spent. Okay. In the absence of none, and I think this is where we're going to end the class. Thank you for coming. Next Wednesday is another time, 10 o'clock on the dot. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.